You already know the answer to why Lucifer fell. Pride. You've heard it 100 times in sermons, in Bible studies, and in passing conversations about spiritual warfare. Pride. Done. Next topic, but here's the problem. Isaiah 14 doesn't just say pride. It says something far more specific. There's a detail embedded in the middle of that passage, a single name, a particular sequence, a role that almost no teacher ever stops long enough to examine. And when you understand what it actually encodes in the original Hebrew, the whole story changes. Not slightly, fundamentally, because the question was never simply, did Lucifer want to be greater than God? The real question is, what exactly did he want to take? What specific authority did he reach for? And why does the answer to that question echo through every page of Scripture, from Genesis 3 all the way to Revelation? By the end of this video, you won't just know that Lucifer fell because of pride. You'll know the precise nature of what he was after. Why Isaiah's language makes that claim with surgical accuracy, and how recognizing that pattern will completely reframe the way you read the rest of the Bible. Because once you see this pattern, it shows up everywhere, and you will not be able to unsee it. Let's start with the text itself, because most people think they know Isaiah 14. They don't. Isaiah chapter 14 is one of the most cited passages in all of Scripture when the subject turns to the origin of evil, the fall of Satan, or the nature of spiritual warfare. The passage is famous. Preachers quote it constantly. But almost universally, teaching on Isaiah 14 picks up at verse 12, rides the wave of verses 13 and 14, lands on pride as the conclusion, and moves on. And in doing so, it skips right over the architectural details that make the passage extraordinary. So before we proceed to the detail everyone skips, we need to understand what kind of text we're actually reading. The passage is more significant than most people realize. Isaiah 14 is what ancient Hebrew scholars call a mashal. The Hebrew word mashal refers to a taunting song, a proverbial poem, or a parabolic lament. It's a literary form with a very specific function. A parable wasn't written just to describe events. It was written to expose the inner logic of a character's downfall, to hold up a mirror to the way someone thought and show how that thinking destroyed them. Isaiah is writing in the late 8th century before Christ during an era of Assyrian and Babylonian dominance over the ancient Near East. The surface target of this marshal is the king of Babylon, a proud, brutal imperial ruler who has subjugated nations and exalted himself above all earthly competition. That's the first layer. That's what the original audience heard. But here is where scholars across traditions have long recognized something unusual. The language Isaiah uses inside this taunt song escalates far beyond anything that could apply to a mortal king. No human ruler ascends above the clouds. No earthly king sits among the divine council of heaven, the mountain of the congregation in the far north that verse 13 describes. No Babylonian monarch could literally say he would make himself equal to the Most High. The imagery exceeds any human referent. This evidence is what drives the long-standing interpretive conclusion that Isaiah 14 operates on two planes simultaneously. The king of Babylon is the lens, but the figure being described through that lens is something far older, far more powerful, and far more cosmic. The text demands a cosmic reading. Its language forces you there. And once you accept that dual layer, once you read the text as both a condemnation of Babylon's king and a window into the original rebellion in heaven, the overlooked details suddenly become the most important in the passage. So let's go to them. Most teaching on Isaiah 14 treats verses 13 and 14 as a single block of arrogance. 5 declarations, 5 expressions of ego, 5 statements that together equal pride. And that reading isn't wrong, but it is incomplete because it misses the internal architecture of those 5 statements. The sequence isn't random. There's an escalation happening, and that escalation tells you exactly what was really being claimed. Here are the 5 declarations from Isaiah 14:13 and 14. First, I will ascend to heaven. Second, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. Third, I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. Fourth, I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. And fifth, and this statement is the one that unlocks everything, I will make myself like the Most High. Notice what happens across those 5 statements. Each one targets something more specific, more central, and structurally more significant than the last. The first is about location, ascending to heaven. The second is about rank, being above the angelic assembly. The third is about position, sitting in the governing seat, the place of divine counsel. The fourth is about transcendence, above visible creation itself. And the fifth is about identity, being like the Most High. But here is the detail that almost every sermon, almost every commentary, almost every Bible study skips over in a single sentence. In that fifth and climactic statement, Isaiah does not use just any name for God. He uses a very specific divine name, Elyon. In Hebrew, the name is El Elyon, El Elevon. It appears throughout the Old Testament and means Most High, but not in a vague sense. Elyon is the title that specifically designates God as the sovereign authority above all other powers and rulers, seen and unseen. It's the name used in Psalm 82 when God judges among the divine assembly. It's the name in Genesis 14 when Melchizedek blesses Abraham by El Elyon, possessor of heaven and earth. Elyon is not about God's creative power or his covenant relationship or his personal name. Elyon is about ultimate governmental authority over every other authority that exists. So when Lucifer says in that climactic fifth statement, "I will make myself like the Most High," the Hebrew is making a precision claim. He was not simply saying, "I want to be as powerful as God." He was not simply saying, "I want to be worshipped." He was saying, "I want the specific prerogative that belongs to Elyon alone, the sovereign right to rule above all others, to be the highest authority in the structure of existence." This reframes everything. Lucifer's sin wasn't ambition in the abstract. Lucifer's sin involved a targeted attempt to seize a particular throne. And scholars who study the ancient Near Eastern background of this passage note that the imagery of the divine mountain, the council of the gods, and the throne in the far north, all of this was cosmic throne room language. This imagery was the language of ultimate governmental authority over the order of creation. That is what was being claimed. This imagery represents the exact nature of the sin. But here is where it gets even more intriguing. The text provides a clue regarding the trigger for all of this behavior. And it's in a verse that most people skim right past, verse 12 itself. Isaiah 14:12 opens the famous passage with these words, "How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn." In Latin translation, morning star becomes Lucifer, the name that has stuck in Western theology ever since. But the original Hebrew title is far more illuminating. The Hebrew phrase is Helel ben Shachar. Helel ben Shachar. Helel means shining one or light bearer. Shachar means dawn. So the full title is the shining one, son of the dawn. Or more poetically, the brilliant herald of the morning light. Most teaching stops there and uses Helel simply as a poetic description of Lucifer's original beauty and brightness. But there's a layer underneath that almost everyone misses. Helel ben Shachar is not just a description, it's a title of function. In the ancient world, the morning star, the bright planet visible just before sunrise, served a specific role. It heralded the coming of the sun. Its light was derivative. Its purpose was to announce and reflect something greater than itself. The morning star doesn't generate light. It receives and displays light from an external source, pointing toward the sun that is about to rise. Compare this with Ezekiel 28:14, which offers a complementary depiction of the same being before the fall. Ezekiel describes him as the anointed cherub who covers, the guardian cherub adjacent to the very throne of God, present on the holy mountain, walking among the stones of fire. This creature is positioned as close to the divine presence as any other created entity could be. His role there was to be near the source of all light, like the morning star, to reflect and announce the glory that came from God, not him. That is the role Helel ben Shachar held, the most exalted created position in existence. And yet, by its very nature, that position was inherently relational, inherently derivative. The morning star's entire identity depends on the sun. Remove the sun and the morning star has nothing. Its brilliance is borrowed, and this is the overlooked key. The fall of Lucifer was not simply about wanting more power. It was about rejecting the fundamental nature of his position. He was created to be a reflector of glory. He was designed to be a herald of the source. But at some point, as Ezekiel 28:17 tells us, his heart became proud on account of his beauty. And that phrase, proud on account of his beauty, is the precise turning point. The reflected glory stopped feeling like borrowed light. It started feeling like his own. The herald began to want to be the sun. Think about what that means theologically. It wasn't that Lucifer looked across the universe and decided he wanted what God had. It was something more subtle and more dangerous. He looked at what he was, at his magnificence, at his radiance, and he made an error of identity. He mistook derivative glory for intrinsic glory. He began to believe that what flowed through him originated in him. Believing that you are the source of your glory logically leads to the 5-step escalation outlined in Isaiah 14. If I am the source of my glory, then I should be the highest authority. I should be Elion. Scripture notes that back in Job 38:7, when God lays the foundation of the earth, the morning stars sing together and all the angels shout for joy. Lucifer was there. He was among those morning stars. He was created for joy in his position. But somewhere between that original joyful morning and the taunt song of Isaiah 14, the distinction between herald and source collapsed in his mind. And that collapse is the real reason for the fall. Now here is where the pattern becomes staggering. This collapse is not a one-time event. It recurs in Isaiah 14. This passage is the foundational template for everything that follows in Scripture. Go to Genesis chapter 3. The serpent approaches Eve in the garden, and the temptation he offers is a direct echo of the fifth I will from Isaiah 14. He says in Genesis 3:5 that if she eats from the tree, she will be like God, knowing good and evil. The phrase is structurally identical to Lucifer's climactic claim. You will be like Elion. You will have self-generated knowledge, self-generated authority, and self-generated determination about good and evil. You will be the source, not the receiver. Satan does not invent a new temptation for humanity. He exports the same sin that destroyed him. The lie he plants in Eden is the precise lie that ruined heaven. And it works because it targets the same vulnerability. The created being's capacity to mistake reflected glory for intrinsic glory, to mistake derivative identity for self-generated identity. This is why the temptation in the garden was so effective, and it has remained effective ever since. It doesn't ask you to become a monster, it asks you to become the source. It whispers that what you have, what you are, and what you're capable of, all of it comes from you. Not through you, from you. Ezekiel 28:17 frames the passage as beauty becoming the cause of corruption. Your splendor was corrupted by your wisdom, the gifts, the glory, and the position, all legitimate and genuinely magnificent, became the occasion for the catastrophic misidentification of origin. And then Jesus himself confirms the historical reality of this fall. In Luke 10:18, after the 70 disciples return and report that even demons are subject to them in his name, Jesus says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. This is not metaphor or future prophecy. Jesus, speaking from within time, references what he witnessed outside of time. He testifies directly to the reality of the event that Isaiah 14 encodes. The fall was real, the rebellion was real, and its shape was precisely what we've traced through the Hebrew text. Now consider what this revelation means for the larger story of Scripture. The ongoing conflict that runs through the entire biblical narrative from Genesis to Revelation is not simply a conflict between righteousness and evil in a generic sense. It is a conflict between two fundamentally different understandings of where authority, identity, and glory come from. One view holds that all glory is derivative, that created beings receive, reflect, and herald a goodness and authority that originates in God alone, that every gift is given, every light is borrowed, and every moment of beauty flows from a source outside ourselves. This is the view that holds creation together. This is Elion's order. The other view holds that created beings can be the source of their authority, that self-generated sovereignty is possible, and that the herald can become the sun. This is what Lucifer claimed, and it is catastrophically, cosmically false. The entire arc of human history is the demonstration of why the second view leads to destruction and why the first view is the only stable foundation for existence. Every human institution that has claimed self-generated authority, every empire, every ideology, and every philosophy that says we are the source of our law and our glory has eventually collapsed under the weight of its claim. Borrowed light cannot sustain itself once it is cut off from its source. And on the personal level, this pattern is not ancient history. It is the daily temptation. Every time you and I mistake our gifts for our own achievement rather than receive grace, we are already playing the exact error of Helel ben Shachar. Whenever we assume that our identity is self-generated rather than granted by God, we find ourselves at the same crossroads where the morning star made his catastrophic choice. Isaiah 14 is not just a taunting song about an arrogant angel. It is a diagnostic. It identifies the specific spiritual error at the root of all rebellion, the confusion of received glory for self-generated authority, and the rejection of a created being's inherent dependent relationship with the Creator. The cure, which is revealed throughout the rest of Scripture with extraordinary care, is precisely the opposite orientation. The Psalms return again and again to the language of trust and dependence. Psalm 16 says that every beneficial thing I have comes from God. Psalm 62 declares that my soul rests in God alone. The New Testament crystallizes this truth in passages like John 15:5, where Jesus says that apart from him we can do nothing, not as a limitation, but as a description of how creation actually works. We are branches, he is the vine. We are designed to receive, not to generate. The morning star was created to be glorious. The tragedy of Lucifer is not that he was magnificent, he was. The tragedy is that he could not remain content to let that magnificence be what it actually was, a reflection, a gift. An overflow of someone else's light is given to him to steward and share. And perhaps the most sobering thought in all of this world is that the same magnificence that was Lucifer's undoing is available to every human being who has ever lived. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 3:18 that we are being transformed from glory to glory as we behold the Lord. That is the proper relationship between the reflector and the source. The more we behold, the more we reflect, and the more genuinely glorious we become. Not by claiming the glory as our own, but by pointing it back to its source. The morning star that tried to become the sun fell like lightning from heaven. But Daniel 12:3 describes those who embrace their created role, receiving light, reflecting it outward, and heralding a glory greater than themselves, as shining like the brightness of the heavens and leading many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Same image, but a completely different orientation toward the source. That is the detail in Isaiah 14 that most teaching skips. It's not simply that Lucifer was proud. It's that his pride had a specific shape, a specific target, and a specific mechanism. And that mechanism is still operating today in the same form, offering the same promise, pointing toward the same catastrophic conclusion. Now that you've seen it, you're going to see it everywhere. In Eden, in the Tower of Babel, in the wilderness temptation of Jesus in Matthew 4, Satan offers him all the kingdoms of the world if he will simply bow, offering self-generated sovereignty to the one who is about to willingly receive a cross. You'll see the pattern in Nebuchadnezzar's statement in Daniel 4. Is not this the glorious Babylon I have built by my own mighty power? And in his immediate humiliation that follows, you'll see it and you'll recognize it. And recognizing it is the beginning of being free from it. If this kind of deep biblical study is what you are looking for, subscribe and stay with us. There's an entire library of this material to explore. And leave a comment below. What did you notice in Isaiah 14 before today that you're now seeing differently? Because I promise, once the pattern reveals itself, the conversation gets even more intriguing.